16 Love proudly supports Rocky Mountain PBS. From the writer and the producer of A Cinderella Story comes 16 Love, a movie about family, tennis, and falling in love. In theaters and on VOD and online, January 20th.
Titulia is naturally farmed. The results are obvious to the senses. We tend the land so that the people we work with can thrive. Titulia, to help, to life, to tea.
I've worked with Dad probably since I was 7 or 8 years old. He put me in my own boat 28 years ago.
My end words were to my former husband, "You're fired."
I think if you're not compassionate in this business, that you shouldn't really be in it.
The stories, it's the history and where we came from. This is what life is about.
Our family legacy will continue throughout the generations.
I'm the third generation in a 5-generation business.
When I talk on the phone and I tell them, okay, my grandma does the restoration. Your grandma does the restoration. I'm definitely gonna work with you guys because that just means so much that it's actually a family business.
Bookbinding is romantic and it has mystery to it. I liked being a bookbinder.
My father was born in Denmark. He came to the United States to learn more about bookbinding, to further his education. And when he came over here, he met my mother, and then he didn't want to return. He subscribed to a trade magazine which had binderies for sale, and the bindery that he inquired about happened to be in Denver, Colorado. And so they bought the bindery, which was very small, and then progressed from there. It was just my dad and my mom and me, and I was raised during the Depression. We were working together to try to make a life for ourselves. Dad died suddenly. He had a heart attack. I talked to him in the morning, and he was gone that night. It was a big shock. He was one of the ones who didn't use files. He kept everything filed in his head. So when he died, we were at a complete loss.
When Grandpa passed on and Grandma wasn't well, then Mom had to shoulder much more of the responsibility, and then you came home from college.
I knew I needed help here, so I asked her if she could leave school and come in with me because I needed to have the support, and she did.
So at 18, I'm helping my mom run a business, and I took that very seriously. We needed to find out what customers were here, what to do with them. There was no written policy on how to bind books. It was a difficult time. It wasn't much fun.
I felt that I kind of took her choices away from her, but she didn't seem to mind. She seemed to know that, you know, she was needed, and she never complained. She came in and helped me do what had to be done.
At the time when my grandfather died in 1972, it was not common for businesses to be owned by women.
We had a large customer, University of Colorado, with a man that was the purchasing agent, and he let it well known that he knew that a woman-run business would not be successful, and so he pulled the work away from us. There was no recourse in those days. I mean, you didn't really complain. You just took your lumps and you moved on, and you made what decisions you had to make in order to survive.
So for about 6 months, we were really slow, and then people realized that we weren't going anywhere, that we were staying put.
Once our other customers, though, found out that we were still up and running and that there weren't going to be any major changes here, we had the work coming in after about a year, and we had more work than we knew what to do with.
When you bind a book, there's 40 different steps that are involved. You either glue it, sew it, you have to title it. You can't get a quality book done overnight, and as much as we are in the right now, I want it done, wait at Kinko's, get it printed. When somebody wants something hardbound, custom made to their size, it is not an overnight process. One
of the customers I had, and he said, "Rita, I want to have the largest book in the world." "Oh, you think you can make it for me?" I said, "Sure. All I need to do is find out what the largest book is right now. We'll make one a little bit bigger." We had to make the covers out of ping pong tables. We couldn't find paper big enough, so we had to go to the Denver Post and buy a roll of paper and hand cut it and then fit it into these boards.
It weighed 500 pounds, 8 feet tall, 5 feet wide, about 3 inches thick.
They came with the TV cameras, and it took 8 men to carry that book out of the shop and load it onto a flatbed truck. It was well worth it because the employees all got they all enjoyed working on it, and it was fun, and everybody could say, well, we made the largest book in the world.
Because it wasn't common for women-owned businesses to be around, we made my dad president, so we would have to deal less with the hassle factor. He continues to be president because we don't have the heart to change his job title now.
Hi, I'm Dick Lundquist. I'm 77 years old. I'm known as Grandpa. I'm the president of the corporation, but it doesn't really mean much. Everybody in the company participates. All my grandkids and that, we're all kind of equal there. We're like the old rancher, the old farmer. Everybody has a part of the action. All right, pack them up.
You're gonna help us, Grandpa.
Now you guys,
No,
Grandpa was supervised. Growing up in the business, some of these kids start out when they're 9 days old in this place. Our back room was our nursery for the shop down here, so all these kids have grown up within the bookbinding company.
What I do here is I usually unpack the books from the schools. I'll cut up the boxes. I'll go on deliveries with my grandpa. My least favorite part about coming in is working. I just rather sit around and do nothing.
It's a good experience for them. They may complain a lot, but they do it.
I got my work ethic from the family business. I learned at a young age how important it is to work hard, to be fair.
You know that you could rely on your family. Now there is an exception to that, and it is very hard to rely on your ex-husband. He came into the company and helped out, and I eventually married him at 18 and a half.
Well, he was an integral part of the business at one point in time because Gail and Bill actually worked the business for 12 years.
It was hard when the marriage was ending because there's a lot of feelings on both sides. Bill stayed in his area and Gail stayed in hers so that they didn't bump noses too much.
The problems that we were having at home came into the business. Bill's world was black or white. There were no shades of gray. He wanted to come in, fire staff, reorganize the bindery. I mean, just start it brand new. And it's like, you can't do that. So it just got to be so bad that we had, and I don't remember the exact words, except my end words were to Bill the day after Christmas, "You're fired." I remember that very clearly.
They divorced when I was 10, so 5th grade. That was very uncomfortable and everybody's kind of walking on eggshells, so good thing I was in school at that point. I didn't have to see too much of it.
There becomes a point in time where you just know it's over. I'm not responsible for your happiness. And so he decided to move on. And it was, it worked. It worked. Cash flow scares me. I want to make sure that we have enough money, and sometimes it is a real stretch.
Always making sure that you have enough money to both pay your employees and your suppliers.
If you start closing down companies, where are those people going to go?
My name is Catherine Miley, and I'm 82 years old, and I've been here 47 years. They're very nice people to work for, and they've even told me that they feel like I'm a member of their family, and I feel the same way toward them.
It's never been a huge profit-making industry. It is very labor-intensive, and I think it would be hard to support multiple families.
I truly believe Lynn hasn't missed being part of the company.
Now, Lynn didn't come in because she felt that having the two sisters here, her and her sister, that it wouldn't be a good idea. So she went out on her own.
We still had that sibling type rivalry.
Gail and I, we had a bit of a disconnect as far as how things were done. That's part of a family business, is trying to put the business first and the family second.
You know, you can't have two presidents of the United States. So I think it worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
I wonder what it would have been like if I would have stayed in the bindery. But I think it's good now. So I'm happy for where they are and what they've done.
Like everything, you know, it has its ups and downs, and anything, any business, any marriage, any relationship has its ups and downs. Everyone feels overworked and underpaid, and, you know, no matter what profession you're in, and you always have rough spots. So sure, everybody goes through that. But I knew in the long run that Gail was in here with me, and then Erica took an interest in it, and we were looking down the road at the long haul and not for the short term.
Being next in line, I'm excited to run the business. I started working full-time for Denver Bookbinding in about 10th grade. I don't expect my kids to follow in my footsteps or grandma's footsteps or great-grandma's footsteps.
I mean, the kids are pretty young. They don't even know what t-shirt and jeans they're going to wear in the morning. So I don't know what the future's going to bring.
As far as the great-grandkids, Ray, he may be wanting to come into this business from what we can see.
Ray loves to come down here. He's been coming down here since he was 4 days old.
I think, Ray will definitely come in the business. He loves to come down to the shop, and he gets paid. He's on the payroll, and he's my janitor. And if I get in his way, he says, "Grandpa, get out of the way. I'm coming through."
He's a very smart and intelligent boy, very alert, and he seems to like it down here. He seems to enjoy coming here.
They think I'm going to take it over, but I may not, because there's a lot of spiders and I don't like spiders. If I didn't come to Denver Bookbinding, I would probably sit down and relax at home and watch TV.
Grandpa and Grandma made it work, and if they can make it work, any of us can make it work.
My mother was very active. She was the other half of the company as far as my father was concerned.
When she got sick, my mom and my dad, they took a shift with Grandma. I took a shift with her, and Lynn and Tim. The family unit all got together and helped my grandmother transition from being an independent woman of 96 to passing on. And so that's kind of how our family has worked this whole time. As I've gotten older, I value those things. When I'm down here working, and I come at weird hours, and 11 o'clock will roll around at night, and the lights will go out. I'll say, "Okay, Grandma, okay, Grandpa, I'm about ready to go." And the lights will go back on. So for some people, they're just saying, "I think that's probably a short in your electric lights." I don't think so, because we just had the electrician come in and do everything, and there were no shorts. So that's happened more than once.
Yeah, we've got a good family. Well, I like working with Gail. She is working for the company, and as far as our personal relationship goes, we're still mother-daughter. You know, she's the light of my life. I have another daughter, and I have Erica. We're a very close family. They go down, I go down. You know, whatever happens, happens to all of us.
We are the last U.S. maker of Western shirts that goes back 60-some years.
So it's still a family business, you know?
We all have some respect for each other and a lot of love for each other, which we of course don't show.
They laid the foundation of this business. Everything we have today is because of them.
I was born on March 28, 1901. I think that makes me 106 or 7, I don't know. I quit counting. I started Rock Mountain about 1940. We started with the hats. The idea of being a cowboy was wearing these big hats. You see them on the street today, guys never knew a cow. Want a big cowboy hat.
I was actually going to come here and work for a year. I never expected to make this a career, but it just sort of happened. Those first years on the road were very tough. A lot of people never heard of a Western shirt, much less carried them.
And he went on all the way to New England. Sold goods in every town he was in. You know, he opened it up.
I did the designing of the line and bought all the raw materials for about 30 years. Then Stephen came into our business. My son, he's been around here for over 20 years, and he actually runs the company now.
I arrived the day the business started going down the drain. When I first came into this business, the urban cowboy ended and the industry was in a state of collapse. Stetson went bankrupt. Stores were closing right and left. For many years, I really never knew if we had a future.
Well, I've seen dozens of competitors go out of business, but we seem to perk along and make a living from it.
I realize that sounds conceited, but I really think that it's what I brought that made us make the last transition and survive.
At the last minute, Stephen came into our business. I still don't know what turned him that way, but I'm very thankful he did, because otherwise we wouldn't have a business. Don't tell him I said that, because he's hard enough to get along with.
When I came in, my grandfather was doing the operations, my father was doing the design and merchandising. No one was doing any advertising or PR. Nobody was doing any international sales. So I simply assumed roles in areas that had vacuums, and that's the kind of company we've become today, is having concentrated on, if you tell the story enough, eventually it gets out.
Stephen is quite a fine PR man, and we were in the papers and the magazines and television, which has been very recent in the general scheme of things.
You know, the dynamics of the family business are fascinating, because when I first came into it, there was friction between my father and my grandfather. But as I gradually became more active, the friction transferred from between them to between them and me.
We haven't had any arguments in the past 20 years since Stephen's been here, because we get exasperated with Stephen and we stick together.
The biggest challenge we faced was overcoming cheap imports.
Walmart created the difference. Sam Walton put thousands of stores out of business.
There's no stores nearby anymore. All the downtown stores closed. All the ones within several miles are gone, and it just happened. I liken it to Walmartization.
And then we started a retail business about 5 years ago, and that's when I started, working more in the retail business. Good to see you again.
Now that we're the last of the early businesses left in this neighborhood, and we've become a destination.
Well, the reason we survived all these years is because we had good styling. We stuck with it. My father came up with this 2-point pocket, and it's probably the longest running style of any shirt in the country, not just Western. And they've all copied us, of course.
Well, the cut of them is different. This extra button here, there's a yoke that's shaped in the back.
Today, this is the quintessential Western shirt, and that's due to them. We've expanded our reach to boutiques and fashion stores from Taos to Tokyo.
Where the hell did he come with the idea? Well, who had a better one, you know?
We weren't always the cheapest in the business, and we're still not. So we had to put the quality and the styling in it.
We're not trying to sell 100 million people, but we're selling a hell of a lot more than we ever thought we'd sell.
We will never be the cheap guys in this business. We want to be the good guys in this business, the guys who make something special. The fact that Rockmount Ranchwear is made in the United States is very special because we're the last guys in our industry who do that, which stands to reason because Western wear is the quintessential American thing. The fact that it could be made in China in gulags is just absurd, but it is, and people are sick of that.
The fact that we do something different keeps us going. And it's paid off over the years because most of the movies have our shirts in them that have Western shirts, and we're known for our styling and our quality.
A couple of years ago, Brokeback Mountain had some shirts we made in it that Ang Lee specifically requested that they use in the movie. Those 2 shirts sold on eBay after the movie was shot for $100,000. We're all about authenticity and realness, and that's why Bob Dylan has been wearing our shirts for many years, and Eric Clapton has been wearing our shirts for over 40 years. These guys are visionaries, and the fact that they like what we do is very, very validating for my family and me because this is what we've done with our lives. I think we've all tried to outdo each other in terms of how hard we work. My grandmother used to say the company was my grandfather's mistress.
I think of myself as a very lucky guy that was in a country that gave you an opportunity to make something of yourself if you had an idea.
I worked all the time, and that is hard on any kind of relationship. I was divorced and got married again 3 years later. It was a rough road to hoe for a while.
I could never understand why he couldn't just say at 5:30, let's go. I never knew what time we were going to leave, and I found that very frustrating. And of course, now it's exactly how I work. I never know what time I'm leaving.
It's a good thing, the business, because we're all part of the same family. We basically like each other, and we have the same thing in mind. And it's really a pleasure to work with my son and my father.
I never expected my father and my grandfather to come to work daily for the last 25 years that I've worked here. I've come to take it for granted.
I'm very grateful that things have evolved as they have with our family. It's more or less unique in this country to have 4 generations. My son, my grandson, and he's got a son.
Coulter, who is Stephen's son and who is 9, goes to a school downtown, and Stephen picks him up in the afternoon sometimes and brings him down here. Of course, he's only 9 years old, but he's getting some background for it. Now, whether he wants to do it, who knows? Because I firmly believe that people should be happy in what they're doing and not have to do anything. But if he would want to, that would be fine.
If he wants to do this, and that remains to be seen, then he'll have to earn it. He will not be given it. I wasn't given it. I had to earn it.
For a kid, this isn't like the most fun place, but it's okay to hang out for a while. If I wasn't here, I would rather be swimming at the Denver Athletic Club.
Coulter's a champion swimmer, and he comes in here, he comes over to see Marvin and I, and we sit and talk about things, and he's going to be okay. He's a good kid.
We all had in mind that he'll be the 4th generation. Whether he will or not, we don't know.
I don't know what I want to do because it's just too early to decide.
No one wants to feel that their fate is sealed. They need to find their destiny for themselves.
The legacy of the 3 generations has been fairly smooth in transition. My father gave up one thing at a time, and all of a sudden I wasn't doing this and I wasn't doing that, and Stephen was doing most of it. And that's the way I guess it happens in the normal scheme of things.
This has been a hard year. We lost my father and my grandfather. Having worked with the two of them for 27 years, you can imagine it's a different place.
I worked for Jack A. Weil since 1945. Because there isn't a finer man that ever lived that could beat him. The good Lord took him from us.
I think that's one thing about Jack Weil. He wanted to be here and he was having fun.
But we used to have a lot of laughs. Yeah, he was the greatest.
My father was the part I didn't expect because he was 79, and given my grandfather's longevity, we assumed he would be here likewise. And so it was a sudden disaster for our family. If you want to know the truth, I didn't know how much I relied on my father and my grandfather emotionally, and so now I'm circling the wagons with my wife and my son, and making more of a focused effort to nurture those relationships.
It just is a lot different coming here because they're not saying hi and asking you how you are and stuff like that. It sort of seems more alone, maybe.
I can understand why some people lose the drive when things like that happen. However, I was brought up in a way that we don't give up.
I particularly appreciate the people I've met over the years. There are a lot of good people in this world, and sometimes we don't take enough time to sit back and enjoy them and realize how good most people are.
I think the West is a state of mind. It's a matter of youth. It's a matter of being independent. This cowboy business is part of America. It's part of our country.